Hi all, good morning and welcome to you for the 14th training day session. So today we are going to learn about JavaScript. So the upcoming week we are going to have the training on LWC. So JavaScript is the base for LWC. Kindly go through this training session and make use of this training session. Understand the JavaScript concepts, everything. Try to do practice of yourself for the weekdays so that you'll be able to understand the LWC concepts easily. Okay, so today nearly 58 members have joined, so we can start our session today. Over to you, Madhumati.
Hi all, good morning. So yesterday we have seen training on HTML and CSS, which is kind of the basic structure. Only the UI part we have seen. So to make it live and working, so to add some functionality to the HTML and CSS, we need to learn some JavaScript. Okay. Without JavaScript, there will be simply a information displayed in the UI, but to communicate with server or to have some validations or to have interaction with browser, we need JavaScript. To receive input from user, we need JavaScript. So we'll go through the main concepts in JavaScript today. So I will share my screen now. So today yeah, so thanks to the sponsors for this event, Demand Blue and 360-degree technologies. So, yeah, so I'm Madhumati. I have around 6+ years of overall IT experience with 2+ years of experience in Salesforce. So currently working as a system analyst at Demand Blue, and you can reach out to me in my LinkedIn profile. Or this is my the email ID. You can make note of it. Start with JavaScript introduction today. So yesterday's session was about HTML and CSS. Just to recall, the HTML is the skeleton for any of your website. It will be composed of all the tags. So we have seen some of the tags yesterday, and we have seen CSS also yesterday. So HTML says what to display in the browser, and CSS says how to display it in the browser. And CSS will also help us in building the responsive web design also. So it will enable us to apply different formatting like color, then borders and all to the UI to make it more attractive. So this JavaScript, so it is to make the website very live and active. So without JavaScript, there will not be any functionality. So it is still we have seen the client side and server side scripting, right? So the client side scripting will get executed at the browser side. Okay, so there will be no or minimal interaction with the server, and it will reduce the workload for the server, thus reducing the server hits wherever possible. So we need both the client side scripting and server side scripting to make any website successful. So this is a part of a kind of front end development. Okay, so this script will run in your browser. We'll start with the actual session today. So it's a client-side scripting language, which means it doesn't need any processor or any IDE installed or something. It will just run in your browser. And it is an object-based scripting language. It's not a programming language. JavaScript is a scripting language. So like Java or .NET, here also we have the concept of objects, inheritance, and then again properties, methods. So we'll go through that in detail in the following slides. So just to, you have to remember it's object-based scripting language, and it is used to create dynamic pages, which means based on the response, right? Let's say you're browsing in some online purchasing application like Flipkart or Amazon. So you're applying some filter. Okay, so I want to see, you're searching for some mobile, let's say. So you're applying some filter. I want to see only the mobiles of this particular brand, or only the mobiles of this price range. So based on the user input, you're applying some filter, right? It will pass on a request to the server, and based on the response, it will create dynamic pages with different set of mobiles based on the user selection. And as I told already, it is not a compiled language. You don't need any compiler or interpreter. It will be just translated by your browser. It's a translated language. So you need not install any add-on here in your browser. Every browser comes up with this JavaScript translator. It could be either Chrome or Edge or IE, whatever it is. The JavaScript code will run by default, and you need not do any pre-installation or installation activities to support this JavaScript. So to add the functionality or to make the page alive, we are adding this JavaScript to the website. So I will show, as I told, right, it will run on the browser only. So you can see the code in your browser. Okay, so if you see any website, like how we have seen the HTML and CSS being displayed here, you can see the JavaScript also in your browser. So if you go to sources tab, you will see the list of files associated with the current web page. Okay, so here you have a folder called JS library. So in this JS library, you could see all the JS code written for this particular web page. And also, as I told, this JavaScript will be translated by the browser, right? You can give the commands or statements to the browser in your console also. So console is kind of, you can interact with browser via console. So right click anywhere and click on inspect. In console, you can type your statements, JavaScript statements, and verify the output here. For example, console.log. So it's a JavaScript statement. We will see every statement in detail later, but just I'm saying you can execute your JavaScript statements in the console itself. You can verify. So console.log. So the browser has understood this statement, and it has printed whatever we had given inside there. We can give some alert box also. Alert is another JavaScript statement. Yeah. So the browser itself has executed. Okay. So that's how you can check. And if there is some error also, it will get displayed in your console. Giving some invalid method name. So it is saying, so it's kind of how your ID displays your error message in your coding or scripting. So the same way your browser will also give you an option to, refer this error message. So client, it's purely a client side scripting. So you can execute your statements in your browser itself. It's a sample JavaScript program. So whatever I have shown, like in browser, you can just verify your scripting. But to add the script to your website, you have to embed it inside the HTML. Okay. So like how we have embedded styles yesterday, if you remember, in the head tag, right? In the body tag, it will have the actual content, whatever to be displayed in the UI. But the head tag is about metadata, right? All the styles, all the script, and all this title, all data about data will reside in the head. It will not be visible in the UI. So the scripting, the inclusion of scripts should also happen in your head tag only. Okay. So there is a script available in HTML. So to add any code to your website, you have to embed it within the script tag only. So, so there are multiple versions of JavaScript available, right? So before ES6, so ES6 has the most advanced features, and before ES6 release, you have to give this type. Okay, type equal to we are telling the client that it's a JavaScript. Okay, it's a kind of JavaScript coding. So we have to tell the client that consider the below piece of code as JavaScript code. So I'll just put it this in the HTML file. The HTML files should be saved with the .html extension. I'm navigating to the path where it have been saved, and I'm opening. So at the time of page load itself, the script have got executed. Okay, so we haven't given any invocation point here, like on click of the button, this should happen, or on changing some input value, this should happen. So we haven't given any event to trigger the script. So whenever this page is getting loaded, the script have got executed. Okay, so we have used the alert statement of hello world, right? So during the time of page load, this alert statement have got executed. So one to remember is to add any website, you will be adding a script tag, and inside that you have to place your script. Okay. So how to run JavaScript program? So it doesn't need any special installation of any plugin or any exe file. So something like that. So the browser itself will run the JavaScript code for you. When I use, okay. So when some HTML page has some JavaScript code inside it, embedded in it like this, the browser will parse and execute your JavaScript code also. It is a cross-platform scripting, which means it will run on every browser. Okay, there is no specific browser specification, and also it will run on every operating system, Windows, Linux, or Mac. It is it's a cross-platform scripting. Okay, the initial first some hands-on exercise. Let's try to do, like can you all open your browser and try to print some alert statement here in your browser and confirm whether it's working or not for you. Let's say my first program. So you have to try alerting first program in your browser. Can you all try and confirm whether it's working? have to right click on the browser, inspect. In console, you have to type your alert statement. I have got response from Harsh. Okay. Vishwa, Vidya, fine. Kanika. Fine. Fine. We have got some many responses. So I hope now you are familiar with using your console for any statement execution. Now, can you open any text pad here, uh, text editor here, and put up some code inside a script tag, and the same alert statement can you, put inside a script tag and try launching that web page in browser instead of writing it in console. Can you write a HTML file and code inside your HTML file? Same statement, whatever you had given in console, the same has to be given in HTML file and confirm. Maybe I can give you this HTML skeleton without the script tag. You just have to include the script tag in your header tag. You can use queries also. You can post it in the chat window. I will try to help you. And that's great. So some people have responded. So we'll wait for 1 or 2 minutes more. Yeah, so Bhupati Raja, so he's asking whether we need to specify this type, whether it's mandatory. Yeah, without type also it will work if your version of JavaScript is ES6 and above. Okay, fine. So I think we can move on to the next topic. I hope everyone have got output. Have that HTML program saved for our next programs or for next exercise. We will use the same. Okay, so we will use the same HTML code but with different script tags. So have that HTML program saved in your the advantages of JavaScript. It's same as that of your client-side programming. It's very fast because there is no server hit. Everything works inside your browser only. So it is kind of very speed and it is very simple to learn. Okay. And JavaScript is the base for any client-side programming languages like some other frameworks, right? jQuery, Angular, React.js. So JavaScript is the very basic. If you know this, you will be able to master in other advanced versions of JavaScript. So it is very popular over the web, and it is a cross platform, right? It works in all browsers and all operating systems, and it will eliminate the server load also. Whatever it can do at the client side, it will do from its end. And only when and where the server is needed, a server hit will be made. And we will be able to create rich interfaces, like whatever you can do like whatever you do, you make changes in CSS, the same thing you can do in the JavaScript also. You can work with styling also using JavaScript. So we have seen the alert method, right, to show some content to the user. In the UI, we have used the alert statement. So the same way, there are many ways where you can print some of the data, dynamic data in your JavaScript code. So there are three most commonly used ways. Alert we have seen, it will show a pop-up kind of thing, right? So other two methods are console.log and document.write. So console.log, right? This is kind of your debug system.debug statements in your Apex code. So you are executing a JavaScript code. You want to debug, like at the time of execution, what is the value present in your code? So we used to log this in your console. So console.log It can be a static value like any string, or it can be a dynamic value like any variable. If you use it inside any program, I mean your piece of code, you can print the values also. For example, I'm just printing the static text. So this display is not explicitly visible to the user. Only the, if we want to see what it have printed in the console, we have to open the console and see it. It will not be explicitly visible time of execution. But the alert, if you see, it was visible to the user, right? So during the execution of any program, let's say where JavaScript program has some variable declared, and at the time of execution, you want to see is the value present. You can print some variable also, and you can see. So this is one type of printing mechanism, and the other one is document.write. Like alert, this document.write is also a way of communication that we can make with user. So this will also be visible to the user. So when we give document.write, it will replace the entire content in the browser, and whatever we give here, it will display it over there. So this is mainly used for the debugging purpose, console.log, and these two statements will be used whenever we want to display some message to the user. Same way, you can use it in the browser console for testing. All the statements will work in browser console, also inside your script tag. So very basic program that basic functionality or basic execution. In all programming language, we used to start with some addition of two numbers, right? So that's why I have taken this very basic example. So I will execute this statement in browser. Clear your, the console. So when there are more error messages, or when there are more code here, you can clear the console. If you see the piece of code here, the code will, like alert box, we have prompt box also. You see alert, it will just display the message to the user, right? The prompt box will accept input from the user. It will show some message and wait for the user to give some input. So we are using prompt box. So the prompt box will appear, and whatever value they type in, it will be converted to integer. So number. So the user's input, there will be two users input, number one and number two. So we are summing that value, I mean adding that value, and we are displaying the sum here. Okay. So the first statement have got executed. Enter the first number. Getting the first number. Now the second statement is getting executed. The first number was 12, and now I am giving 24. So we are adding those two numbers, and we are printing the value in the console. So the sum of 12 and 24. Yeah. So here you have an option for string concatenation. In other programming languages, if you have to merge string, how you will write this? Let's say the same thing. In other programming languages, it will be like variable number one. For string concatenation, it will be like you have to use the plus character, the plus symbol to append the variables. Okay. So let's say the expected output is sum of 10 and 20 is 30. So how we will write is sum of is constant. I mean it is static text, and you have to dynamically add this variable value, right? So we have to add a plus symbol here. We are doing a string concatenation. Static text plus dynamic text, and again sum of 10 and static text should come under the single quotes. Okay. And the dynamic text, or I mean the variables, right? We shouldn't use any quotes for that variable name. So I'm not using any quote. It's a static text. So static string, I'm using the quotes. And again, so if you see, we have to be very careful in writing the static string and again variable. So there is lot of the concatenation operator. This plus is a concatenation operator involved. So, but in JavaScript, if you want, you can have. So to avoid this string concatenation and the inclusion of variables, you can use this dollar symbol and the curly braces, which means it will work in the same way. For string concatenation, if you have to include variables, you need not use the concatenation operator here. You can simply use the dollar symbol followed by curly braces. So it is kind of easily readable, right? Like how the output will be. So this is one of the the advancement in the string concatenation operator. It is kind of more readable. Okay, so I guess Anand have shared this code in your chat window. Can you check and run this code either in your console or your HTML code? I will give you some 1 or 2 minutes of time so that you will get a hands-on experience on this. I hope you have understand the difference between the alert and prompt statements and the use of this dollar and this angular braces. Okay, how the string concatenation works in in your JavaScript. So fine, we can go ahead with the next next topic. Event handling in JavaScript. So event means it's kind of a user interactions with the browser. So you are clicking some button, it's a event. You are entering some value in the text box, it's a event. So there are some predefined events which can be handled by the JavaScript. So on click of JavaScript button, what should happen? We can define it in the JavaScript. Okay. Change in the state of an object. Object means it's a element of it's a HTML element only. Is known as the event. So event handlers, the piece of code we write, right? Like what should happen when the event happens? That's called event handler. So these are some predefined events supported by the JavaScript. You can handle all the events. So in related to mouse events, there are click, mouse over, and mouse out. So when you click some element, this event will be fired. So mouse over means when you place your mouse on some element, right? Just it's kind of a hover. When you hover on some element, this event will be fired. And when you move your mouse cursor outside of some element, this mouse out event will be fired. I have few examples, 1 or 2 examples in the next slides. So related to form, right, we have the focus blur. So when you place your cursor inside, we have examples for this events. So when you place your cursor inside any of the text box, this focus event will get fired. When you take the cursor outside, the blur event will get fired. And when you click on a button of type submit, the submit event will get fired. So for window also we have load and resize events. We will see it in examples. So I have taken some example for button click. Okay, let's say I'm just taking the HTML code as a base. Okay, so there is a button in UI. So the expectation is whenever we click on this button, we need to display some message to the user and we should disable this button. So when the user interacts with the browser, which means he clicks on the button, it should be disabled. So how we have to write this? Button to define the button in UI, we have to tag here. So there is some unique ID here, and as I told, there are some predefined events, right, for mouse Click is the predefined event. This can be handled in JavaScript. So what I would say is, on click of this button, so it's attributes. The event handlers will be stated as attributes only. On click, or if it is a form, it will be like on submit. Have to prepend the on keyword and the followed by the event name. So if it is on click event, we are saying on clicking of this button, we should invoke a function. So let's say the function name is disable button. So as we have seen already, all the scripting, right, it should reside in the on click will call a function. Okay, this function is a JavaScript function. So as it is a JavaScript code, we should embed it inside the script tag. Event, click is the event, and this is the event handler. This disable button is the event handler. Usually, the event handlers will be of type function. So here, you should start writing the keyword as function and the function name. Yeah, for people who doesn't know like what is function, a function is a piece of code. Okay, it will with some name. Okay, if you look the function name, if you call the function with the function name, that piece of code will get executed. Like we all have individual name. The same way we are grouping some piece of code and giving it a name. So whenever you call the function with the name, that piece of code will get executed. So on click of this function, we are calling the on click of this button, we are calling a function. So this function is a piece of code. So the code is, we are telling the user that this button can be clicked only once. Disable now. Yeah, and we have to disable this button, right? So, like how you have written selectors in CSS, you can write the selectors in JavaScript also. So in CSS, if you have to select some element by class name, you use dot class name. If we have to select the element by ID, we have to write the hash ID name, right? The same way you can access your element in JavaScript also. So I'm saying document dot get element by ID. So I'm going to retrieve this element based on the ID, right? So get element by ID. So you have to tell which ID. This piece of code will have reference to this button. No, we have to disable that button. Button dot disable equal to true. Saving this. So again, we are handling the event for this button. So this is the event. On click of this event handler should be called. So when this event handler is called, this function will get a reference to this button and it will set the disable property of this button to true. So that's the expectation. We'll see how it works in the browser. Clicking on this. Yeah. So on click of this button, this method have got executed and we are getting this alert box. This button can be clicked only once. Will be disabled now. You see. When you click on OK, the button has become disabled now. Now you will not be allowed to click. So if you see, inspect this element, the disable property have got added here. If you see. Remove this disabled attribute. It will become editable. So we are adding one additional attribute here. Edit. So you just remember in HTML, if you want to disable any element, you have to add a disabled property here so that it will not be clickable or editable or something, whatever it is. If it has the disabled attribute, it will become disabled. So that is one thing you have to remember. So instead of doing it in UI, on the click of that button, we are doing it dynamically. We are doing that. So we are allowing the user to click it once. When the user clicks, we are not allowing them to click it again. So, one second. Okay, we will try one thing. Instead of disabling the button, can you try changing the color of button to something else? So when you click on that button, the color of the button should get changed to some other color. Can you try that? So I will show you the example to change the color, right? We have to use style.color instead of this piece of code will be same button equal to document dot get element. So it will get a reference to the button and we have to use style dot background color equal to the color name. You can give something, whatever it is, red, green, yellow, something. So instead of executing the code as it is, can you try changing the color of the button? We have shown you the way to disable the button, right? So instead of this line, you can try changing the color also. Okay, fine. So I hope everyone have learned like how to handle the events. So you have to mention the event name and event handler name in the button as attribute here. So the event name and the event handler name as attribute. The event handler will be of some function. So inside that function, you have to write the piece of code. So we have tried, the accessing element from UI, getting the reference to the element and making some changes in the attributes or style. So this is attribute change. We have added a disabled attribute and you people have tried changing the style also. Whatever you can do in CSS, the same thing you have done using the JavaScript also. So this is one example. The next example is also about event handling only. So it's about for this is a mouse event, right? So for form event, I have taken one example. For form, the event name is focus, on focus. Okay. So we'll see how this works. Okay. And the basic HTML skeleton is this. So when you click on this element, right, this is the focus event. You see it is getting highlighted and the cursor is blinking here. So it is the focus event. So on focus of the event, let's say you want to highlight this field from other fields, from other text boxes. So if we change the color of the text box, the background color of the text box, it will be highlighted from other text boxes, right? So we'll write that event handler here. So it's a focus event, I said, right? So what we have to do is for this input element, I'll write it quickly. So we have to write event name on focus equal to the event handler name. So the event handler is a function name, right? Function name, and I'm calling that. We have to define the function here. So function keyword space the function name. We are naming the piece of code. So focus handler, what it has to do, it has to get that element reference. So to get that element reference, document dot get ID. The ID is username. So this text box will have reference to input box. Now we'll change the color. Yeah. Okay, so it's a mistake from copy paste only. Okay, so it's same just like that of the on-click event which you have tried. I'm just sharing the code for your reference. Maybe you can try it when you have time later. So the only difference is instead of on-click, we have tried on-focus. Everything else is same only. So I'm moving on to the next slide. As I told, JavaScript is object-oriented programming language, right? So, like other programming languages, here also we have the concept of objects and encapsulation, inheritance, and all. We'll see them one by one. So these are all the main OOPS concept that we see every day in JavaScript. So object classes, encapsulation, and inheritance. Okay. So object, what is an object? If you see in real time, an object can be anything. Like it can be a chair or it can be your laptop. Whatever it is, an object can be anything, and it will have some properties. Okay. So let's say you're taking a cycle or bike, whatever it is. So its properties will be its weight, okay, its length, and the year of purchase, and who is the owner. So these are all the properties of any real-time object, right? And there will be functions also. It will do some actions, right? So the functions will be, so the functions could be, it's on, it's in parking, so it's a park event, and other functions could be ride event. So whatever actions we can do on it or whatever action it does, it will be functions. So this is related to your real-time object. The same thing is applicable. So whatever we see in real time, that will be, the structured as an object in your programming language also. For example, if you take a student object, okay, he will have some attributes like name, standard, date of birth, and his address, something like that. And his functions would be study, play, sing. So these are the functions that he can perform. Okay, so the same way for any object, we will have both attributes. Attributes are properties. We call it as attributes here or properties in our programming language. And the functions that he performs, right, are the object that it performs. We call it as methods. So the same thing we represent in JavaScript as, let's say we are taking this student object, then we have to say the just like your HTML, the attributes or properties should be in name value pairs. Okay. So for example, variable student. So the object, to say the browser that it's an object, you should always use this curly braces. Okay. Inside this curly braces only, you have to mention all the properties and functions. So for student, if you see, the first one is name. Let's say the name is Emma. Okay. Standard. Okay. And the location. Okay, see the attributes, right? We have to write it as name value pairs. This is the attribute name and this is the attribute value. Or you can say it as property name and property value. The object would be declared as in. If you have to say the function of him, it will also be in the name value format only. So you have to say that study. So it's a function, right? So this is how you describe the same student in your JavaScript. So to describe an object, it should be enclosed in curly braces, and the properties should be enclosed in name value pair. So this is the property name, this is the property value, and the functions also it will be a kind of name value pair only. So the name you have to give here, and the value will be it will be of type function. Okay. So this is how you define a real-time object in your JavaScript. So to access the student's property, right? So this is a, let's say he's a student one. What you have to do is, let's say you want to use this student's location for any purpose. You have to access the, you can access object property or methods using dot notation only. Okay. So if I use student one dot and if I print, so it will access this object, and inside that object it will take this standard property and it will print. Okay, we'll see this now. Has printed number 10 here. We can call, so here we have access the property from the object, right? Student object. We can invoke the function of the student object also. So student, I have to copy paste the entire code. All the method the same way, we have to use the dot notation. Student one dot study. Yeah. So this function have got triggered. I'm getting the output of student is studying. So I'm sharing this code. This is a very basic um, representation of any object. The same way, like what we have done for student, right? Can you write a real-time object for any employee? Any employee or any book you can do. Can you start creating a object in a JavaScript notation for any book or any employee and confirm whether it's working or not? Yeah, so hi, some people have asked like what is the difference between the name and ID, right? So the ID, it will be unique in UI. So with one ID, you cannot have multiple elements. And the name, right, we used when usually we need to use for form elements. So when you submit the form, there will be some server-side scripting that will handle the form data. With the help of this name only, it will get the value for those input tags. So let's say you have two input boxes. So one is name, first name, and other is name, last name. So in server, the server it will get the value of the input tag with the help of the name only. So from request dot first name, they will be using script like that, so that the ID can be used in your UI area and the name will be used in your server side scripting. So to refer that element in server, we give the name tag here, and to refer that element in UI, we give the ID tag here. Okay, so I think everyone have tried writing a object for employee. So that's how we define define any object in Java. So there are three different methods. So whatever you have seen now, right, it's an object literal. Okay, it's kind of a static value or whatever it is. It's an object literal. You are assigning it to a variable name, and all the property name and the function name you are mentioning it here. So there are two other ways also. So an object is okay. So to define the object, it's a unique entity. Okay, one employee cannot be the other employee, right? So it's a unique entity. He will have different set of his own attribute values. Okay, so for example, there could be multiple students. So this is student one, right? The same way we will have student two, student three, with different set of attributes. The attribute values and functions will also vary. So the unique entity. So we have properties and methods. Their properties Their characteristics are, we call it as property here in our code. And the actions they do call, we call it as methods here. So the first example only we have seen using object literal. We have created a object. The same way, the same kind of example is shown here. So we are creating an object with the angular brackets notation here. First name, last name are properties, and this is the method name. Get function. So this is the method name, and this is the method definition. And again, an object property can have another object. So this phone number is a property, and this is the property value. The property value can also be another object. Okay, so if you have to access the landline number, what you have to do is you can access it in a hierarchical manner. So the first parent object is person. So in person, the property name is phone number. Phone number itself is again an object, right? So it is also having name value pair. So phone number dot landline number. To access the landline number, we can use the object name dot property name dot. Again, it's the object, right? I can use the dot notation and the property name. So if you see the output here, it has printed the phone number also, the landline phone number also. So this is what you have tried now for employee object. So the other one is using object constructor. So if you know, if you have come across any other so if you have worked on any other programming language, you'd have heard of this term constructor. Okay, so the constructor is a function only with the same name as that of the object. Okay, so constructor, right, as the name itself suggests, it will construct a new object. Okay, and also the initializations will takes place in the constructor. For example, if you see JavaScript, okay, in Java, sorry, if you see Java or some other programming language, let's say the class name is student, it will have a constructor with the same name. Okay, there will be a method definition or function definition with the same name. Okay, so if you see Java, this is a student class. So like JavaScript, the same thing in Java also. So for example, I'm showing like you will have some properties. Okay, first name, last name, full name, and this is the constructor method we call. So the constructor method will have the same name as that of the class name. So you always have to remember that the constructor name will be same as that of the class or object name, and it will take care of all the initializations, the initial values or whatever calculations we have to do initially for the class or object, we write it inside the constructor. Okay, so when we create an object for student, it will be like student is 1 equal to. I'm creating a new student record with first name as Madhu and last name as Madhi. So the initial calculation of full name will happen. So whenever we create a new object, this constructor will be called and the initial calculations will happen. So it has two arguments, and based on the two arguments, the full name would be calculated. So in the same way, we can create an object in JavaScript using constructor also. So if you see here, it's a function. So as I said already, it's a function only. So in JavaScript, to define a function, we give the keyword as function and the function name and the arguments. So there are two arguments, first name and last name. So we are so this is the objects variable and this is the argument. So when we create a person object, we pass some values, right? So this will have the dynamic or runtime data from the user. So the user can create multiple person objects and they will mention the first name and last name. So that will be assigned to the person's Okay, it would be confusing if you have the same name. When we run the code, I can show it with a different name. So these are arguments and these are object properties. So this object dot first name equal to whatever value the user passed. So here we can give some different name as argument. Whatever name the user gives, it is assigned to the object's first name property. Whatever last name the user gives, it is assigned to the object's last name property. So we are creating two new objects, one for Mukul and other for Rahul. And now we are trying to print the person one dot first name and person two dot last name. So this is one way where you had used the this object notation. Object notation means name value pair. Okay, so this name value combination you have used and created object. This is another notation. Using constructor, you will define using constructor, you can create objects. We will run this code. The object name, I mean the class name and the constructor name are same, and we are passing two arguments. Right, so you have to write a constructor first, and then for the constructor, based on the constructor, you can create the object here. So this is one other way. I'm sharing you this code. And the third way also we'll see, maybe you can try those two methods together. So through constructor, and the other way, third way is object dot create. So it is same like your okay, it is same like your first approach only. In object literal, you have created a object using name value pair, right? The property and function. So the third is also the same way. Um, Using object notation, you can create object using this angular bracket and name value pair. So it is a property name and it's a property value. It's a method name and it's a method definition. And the one additional step you have to do is you can try creating object dot create. So we are creating a new object version of the same. So it's kind of cloning. We are cloning the object definition and we are adding the property values here. This means the name property is not defined here, right? So the cloned version will have the additional property. So for this new created object, we are having a name property, and this is the property value which is already defined here, declared here. So we are setting that value and we are calling the existing method name only. So that's what this example says. It is same like your method one. Using name value pair, you are creating object and you can add some additional. If you use the object dot create, it will become the cloned version of the this object. Okay, and you can add some additional properties also here. We'll try to run this. So this is object one. This is this object is the cloned version of this initial object, and we have set up the property value here. And for existing properties also, when cloned, the is studying parameter will be the property will be false, but you can override that also here. And we are calling the method. When we are calling that method, this name is taken. This name is taken into consideration, and also the value of the is studying date, the overwritten value is taken into consideration. So here the initial object has value is false and the cloned version has overwritten the value as true. So when you call the method, it is saying yes, is studying the value is equal to true. I'm copying this code also. So three ways you can create the object. Can you go through this code and try running it once so that we can move on to the next slide? You try those two approaches. I have shared those two. Instead of just copying and pasting, I hope you are understanding the code, like how we are creating the constructor and how we are creating the object instance and how we are inheriting the parent object values using object dot create. I hope you are just understanding and working on that. Can you confirm? Or if you need some help, you can let me know.
Madhumari, if you want break, we can go for a break and we can come by 11:30.
Yes, yeah. We can go for break, Anandji.
Yeah, okay. Guys, you can take a break and you can come by 11:30.